we want to make sure that texture viewport shading is selected, because if you're in game mode and you hit P to play or begin whatever thing you have set up in Blender game mode, uh, everything will just be white if you're on anything but texture viewport shading. So you always want to do that. And we're going to observe what our little physics simulation looks like so far. So I'm just going to hit P. And don't be surprised if this takes a little while. It's figuring out a lot of different things at once. And that's, kind of interesting, but not near as cool as it could or should be. So we're going to hit escape to get out of that. And everything's going to go back to the way it was. And the first thing I want to do is, under the world setting, I want to, under physics, set the frames per second from 50 to, go ahead and set it to 100. And what that's going to do is, eventually when we render this, we'll render it out at 25 frames per second. So if we have the physics bumped up to 100 frames per second, then that will allow us to watch this explosion, which is actually happening super quick, a lot quicker than I kind of want it to. It'll allow us to slow it down and be able to watch a lot of the really cool stuff going on and be much more like a movie and epic and stuff. Really, why this is exploding, it's not really exploding so much as it is just being extremely unstable, because this is kind of a massive physics simulation going on, and the reason why everything is falling apart is because essentially there's no mortar in between these bricks. There's space, and all that little space means total instability when the gravity is applied, and so they just fall on each other and topple on each other. But there's a couple more things we want to do to make it look a little more realistic and a little cooler. And so what we're going to do is click back on the first layer, so we have this top tower here isolated, and then I'm going to go into front view, and what I want to do, what I want to do is hit Z to go into wireframe, and then I'm going to use my lasso select to select little bits and pieces, well, a little more than that, little chunks of the building. I'm going to deselect that. Little chunks of the building like that, and I'm going to hit Z to go back to get out of wireframe, and I'm going to join these all as one object, so that when this tower crumbles, it's not just all crumbling instantly as individual bricks, but looks like some of it's clumped together still, and will create some really cool effects. So now whenever you create a new object, you can have all these selected, but in the orange mass, at least one thing in the orange mass needs to be yellow. That's as simple as I can put it. So if I hold shift and then click on any one of these bricks in here, then I can hit J to join everything, and if I hit G to grab it, you'll see I've now got one little chunk object here. But it's composed of all these individual bricks, so there's still a bit of unity to it. I'm going to hit Control Z for that to go back. And so pretty much what I'm going to do is just go into wireframe mode and continue. I'm going to deselect everything first. Make sure you deselect everything first before you start adding to your selection to make a new chunk of bricks or whatever, because if I have this selected and that is still selected and I join it, well, I'll show you what happens. Say I forgot that this was selected, and I hop out of wireframe and I hit J to join, then they both become one object. And why that wouldn't be cool is when the tower falls apart, these are going to be falling in the air and be connected to each other. And that might be kind of cool if you were like claiming there's some kind of weird magnetic field, but we're not doing that specifically. So I'm going to undo moving that and undo adding that to that object. Instead, I will hopefully deselect this, and it's not letting me entirely deselect it. So I'm going to go back into the front view, see, deselect everything, and I'm going to grab a little chunk here, make sure nothing else is selected, hit Z to go back into hop out of wireframe, hold shift to select one of these bricks within the bricks to make it yellow, and then hit J to join and create a new object there. So I'm going to continue doing that until I'm satisfied with it. I'm going to click off everything, maybe make a little top piece here, and yeah, that can work as one piece. Shift J, got an object now, and Z wireframe, select some stuff down here. Well, I forgot to deselect. All right, better deselect. One, grab some stuff here. That's a pretty big chunk there, but it'll work. Z, Shift, J, and one wireframe, and go ahead and make a piece up here. Well, I forgot to deselect, so deselect that, and okay, that piece is a bit too massive. And I think I've got another already, yeah, you can see I've got another piece that I made before already selected there, and I don't want it. So I'm going to deselect that. See, I think mostly I want a lot of these tiny little bricks combined together as one object, because I didn't like the way it looked with so many of them just flying all over the place. A few flying over the place would be cool, not so many. So yeah, that's a good little organic looking chunk there. Shift, click, J, and C, and that surprisingly is not a part of another part, because they all have their little individual origins there, which means they're all unique so far. But I want to deselect some of that, so I'm going to hit C, which brings up your selection and deselection brush, and you can change the size of it with the scroll. And if you want to select, you just click with the mouse, but if you want to deselect, you hold down the middle mouse button. And I don't want these to be connected, so that's pretty good there. Well, I'll go ahead and knock off some there so it looks a little more ripped up. Hit Z, hit Shift to hold one of the blocks, J, and I think that'll do it for these added little extra objects here. Well, no, not quite. I want these bottom bricks here, I think, to be a few more of these to be a little more connected. Okay, I imagine that's pretty good. So I'm gonna go back into front view, and I'm gonna hit A to select everything, and I'm going to once again object transform origin to geometry. And the reason I want to do this is all the new objects that I made by conjoining the little brick objects, their origins will also be arbitrarily the little yellow bricks I picked, and I don't want that to be that way. I want each big chunk piece to its origin point, its rotation point, where the physics will be affecting it, to be in the center. So That takes care of the top tower. Let's hop down to this bottom one. And we're basically going to do the same thing with one exception. Now, this is the base tower. So if I hold shift and turn the land back on, what I want to do here is all of these bricks have their individual physics and are set to rigid body, which is the mode you set an object to if you want it to be able to have collision and gravity with everything. But I want this bottom, if this castle were to explode or lose stability and crumble and fall apart, whatever, there would still be some bit of foundation left over of the bottom, and so I want that to be that way here. So I'm going to click just back on that, and I'm going to go into front view, and I'm going to hit Z for wireframe, and I'm going to lasso select just kind of a crazy as I can little bit here, but then get all of the bottom, because I pretty much want all of the bottom to be remaining. And I'm going to hit C to get my selection brush, and I'm going to make some of these look a little less uniform, and my middle mouse clicking, and maybe actually it breaks down into here a little bit. And so this is going to be what's left over in the aftermath and still connected to the ground. So I'm going to hit Z and hold shift to select one of these bricks and hit J to join them all. And so now I've got one big giant bottom object. And so I'm going to go over to the physics of this and change it from rigid body to static, which will return it to basically it doesn't move, so it's not going to fly all over the place and it's not going to move out of the way. And I'm going to turn the collision bounds off because that's just wasted physics. Now I'm going to, as I did with the top tower piece, I'm just going to randomly select a few areas and join them into some big giant pieces that will be hurling down the mountain there, just to make this look cooler. So let shift J and then 1 Z, deselect stuff. Maybe I'll big chunk like that. And here's where you want to be careful too, especially on this bottom piece. You see I selected from the front view this, but it also gets the back here. So you just want to press C to get your selection paintbrush and middle mouse click those and knock all that out. So I've just got that little piece right there. And I'm going to hit Z and hit shift on one of the blocks, hit J, and I'm going to continue to build up a little more structure here, and that's way too much. So C, middle mouse, and Z, shift, J, back to my front view. And there's that big bottom piece, and then there's that piece. So, see, looks like that's still selected there. No, it's not. That's just the origin point of the whole thing. Let's see. It's way too much. Go ahead and turn that into a little chunk. Shift, J, and Z, deselect. Let's see, I will deselect these ones. And Also, when you're using the paintbrush selector, once you're done deselecting or selecting, just right mouse click or left mouse click, depending if you're the type of Blender user who actually clicks on things with the right mouse, to confirm your selection. And hit Shift, J, and hit Z. And I'm starting to forget where I've put little pieces, but I know I still want a few more. Yeah, that would be a good one. J. Still want to get some more here. And altogether, like if I hit A, you'll see there's still going to be a lot of little fragment pieces and little bricks that are going to be flying over the place in addition to the big honking pieces. So, and then also, yeah, if we hit A to select everything, we can see where the majority of those little ones are and where you may want to add some more structure to it. I think overall, I want to create with these kernels up here. I'm going to hit Z and select a few more of these. And once again, we don't want things disconnected to be connected when the physics goes down. But I'm going to go ahead and Z, Shift, J, and let's see, hit A to see how everything's looking. Yeah, I think that's enough structure here. We've definitely got enough right elements for an interesting show. So I'm going to click on here, here, and here. And then click off because I don't like seeing all that. Now, of course, it would be a good time to save. File, save. And we're going to see what the destroy the Hylian tower looks like so far. So we're going to go back into texture mode. So when we play the game, play the physics or whatever the game mode, we can see it. Pretty cool. And once again, it's going pretty slow because it's got a lot to kind of calculate there. But you can see how some of the fragmented stuff we've created is already looking a lot sweeter. Let's hit escape to go out of that. And I still think there's needs to be more interesting shapes of the destruction with this top tower. So we're going to click on the first layer where the top tower is located, and that will deselect all the other layers. And I'm going to press A, and this allows me to see where things are still solo. And the most of this that I would like to be more objects are these stairs. So I'm just going to click off this and hit C to paint, to bring up my paint selection, and select a few of those, right click to confirm it, shift, click somewhere in there, hit J, and then hit A again so I can see where stuff is. And I'll deselect and then have a few more over there and hit hold shift, select one of these bricks, hit J. And also the added bonus to giving fun little, what I was going to say, giving fun little destruction shapes to your object. The added bonus to that is you're reducing the number of overall objects for Blender to have to figure out when the physics goes down, so it will decrease render times and stuff like that. So now what I just did was an accident. You see here if I go into wireframe, well, these are technically connected, but it's still that's too big of a piece. I don't want that much to be connected, so I'm going to hit Control Z until those are no longer. Hit Z, C to paint. And yeah, maybe some little smaller pieces like this would be nice. Hit Shift, select one of those, J, joins them all, Z, and hit A to see where everything is. Still looking kind of like a beehive. So I'm going to paint an area in here, deselect everything, hit C, paint this little bit here, and then hit Z to make sure I don't have other stuff selected, which I do. I do not want this selected, so I'm going to hit C to deselect that, and then Z, Shift on here, J, hit A to view everything, and I want to make a few more object-y type things over here too. So I'm going to deselect everything, hit C for my paint selector, and grab these kind of bricks here. And I grab that big bit, which I didn't want to, and the stuff over there, which shouldn't even be happening. But and then I'm going to C and then middle mouse click to deselect that, and Z, Shift on here, J, and let's see, how am I looking? I still want maybe a big chunk up here. So I'm going to deselect, C, maybe a big piece like that, and hit Z and C from my paint select, deselect all this, maybe one big last chunker like this, hit Z, shift click, J, and go to wireframe. I think that about does it. So I'm going to go ahead and click open both of these tower pieces and go ahead and hit A so that all this will be selected. And just in case I forgot to transform the origins of any of the new pieces I made, I've all selected, so I'm going to go to Object, Transform, Origin to Geometry, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to click off that and select all my pieces. And I'm going to save.